right, our Working Woman Wednesday salute is here. Ladies and gentlemen, she was on Forbes 30 Under 30. Can we give it up for Miss Aerica Banks in the building?
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Aerica, you are a graduate of the University of Seattle and Oxford, I saw.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and so that means you're pretty smart.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I don't know about that, but it was a great experience.
Yeah, tell us what you majored in at Seattle University.
So I was an environmental studies major, but I minored in public affairs because I always knew that no matter what I did, I wanted to make sure it was in public service.
Okay.
Originally I thought I was going to be an environmental lawyer. When I was in high school, I would organize cleanings of the local river and things like that. But once I got to college, I realized that environmental issues disproportionately impact people of color, especially Black folks and low-income folks, people like me. So I got involved in environmental justice issues and realized that policy in the way of policy directed towards environmental justice would be the way that I wanted to serve.
Okay.
So that's what I majored in. It got me through working through a community environmental justice organization, and then took me to D.C., actually, where I joined the Obama administration as a political appointee.
Wow.
And found out I got into Oxford at the exact same time.
Nice.
It was a good day.
It was an amazing day, but a hard decision because the White House under Obama was definitely the best place I'd ever worked at that point, the best place to be. Such a respectful, amazing environment full of amazing people of color working to make, our country a better place. So I left the administration to go to Oxford and majored in environmental policy there as well.
Wow.
And got my master's degree of science in environmental policy. And it was really interesting learning about environmental issues from a more theoretical and more European and global perspective, recognizing that pretty much, around the world, while the races and cultures might be different, there's still those power dynamics at play that that make sure that the haves versus the have-nots manifest in different ways.
Right.
And so taking that back with me to the States, I wanted to go back to the administration, but I finished my degree in the middle of the government shutdown.
Oh,
So
okay.
had to reevaluate, step back, and apply to a ton of different places. I applied to at least 50 different jobs. And literally the only place that got back to me in the States was Google.
Wow.
So a bit of a shift. I expected to go back to a public service, but ended up at Google and found that it's a company that was really aligned with my values. They do have an amazing commitment to environmental issues, and are generally, the motto, the informal model is, do no evil. And that really is kind of the operating principle. So joining the company has actually helped me have more impact and serve the public in ways I could have never expected, especially at a private corporation.
And how do you do that? Because I think when people think environmental justice, they probably don't quite know what exactly that entails. So tell us a little bit about when you say you major in environmental justice, what specifically you studied or learned about. Because again, we're talking the impact it has on, like you said, the power struggles and the have and the have-not. So tell us a little bit about environmental justice in general, what that means.
Absolutely. So environmental justice addresses environmental racism. And what environmental racism means that basically people of color, especially black and brown people in the U.S., are disproportionately impacted by environmental by the effects of pollution, toxic waste siting, regulatory practices that put industrial sites in poor and black and brown communities, whether, and the interesting thing there is that the siting of toxic waste sites, industrial sites near residential areas is done to black and brown communities whether or not they're low income. So the only deciding factor there is really race. Or the negligence of, our decision makers and our policymakers to see black and brown people as, worthy or deserving of living in healthy environments.
So something like the Flint water crisis, for example, that
Absolutely.
would be something that you would kind of take your expertise to really look at changing, or, what do people who major in environmental justice or who are working on that front, how would you take a situation like that and create change in those communities?
So actually at Google, we did, there was a recent, there's a new series called Search On that actually featured the S3 team of girls from Banneker High School who got second place in the NASA competition to create an innovation, and that would change everyday lives. And what they did was create a water filter specifically for the residents of Flint, Michigan.
Wow.
Nice. So you can look up their story on Search On. The girls were amazing. I had a chance to host them at the office and just salute them. Thanks to their coach, Marissa Jennings, who's an amazing Black woman developer and small business owner, founder in DC. And so we had an amazing time celebrating them because that's exactly the kind of work that addresses environmental justice. It's seeing a need in the community, especially impacting our community, and coming up with innovative ways to solve it.
Got it. And now, speaking of coming up with more innovative ways, you have your own foundation called Beacon.
Yes.
Tell us about Beacon.
Yes. So switching gears a little bit, I totally was not expecting to get into environmental stuff, but that's great because it's all related at the end of the day. Every step along my path, I found that no matter what subject matter you work in, no matter what field, what sector, you have a responsibility and an opportunity to really serve your community, and that service is really the most rewarding way for me to have impact. So it was interesting to find different paths to that at Google. And when we were discussing, in 2016, when Philando Castile and Alton Sterling were killed, we actually had really serious discussions on my team at Google and at the company about why Black Lives Matter and how does that manifest in the work that we do. And so my director at the time really empowered me to start initiatives to address racial justice, representation, equity from our lens. So, even though Beacon is about women's entrepreneurship, it might not seem related to the work that I do every day at Google, which is patent policy work, actually.
Okay.
But going back to that principle that no matter where you are, no matter what you work on, you have a responsibility to work against injustice. Our team really took that to heart, and so we started an initiative. We accepted a proposal from Georgetown University's Tech Policy Institute to work on women's entrepreneurship issues, and it was something we were also trying to address because what we found through our research is that the fastest growing group of innovators in the country, and actually in DC as well, in terms of entrepreneurship, are Black women. So Black women are starting the largest number of small businesses. In DC, Black women own the most small businesses.
Wow.
And, small business owners, entrepreneurs, they are our innovators, as are folks who, apply for patents. And yet there's a lot of disparity there. So in the patenting world, for example, something like, the vast majority of patents go to men, even though women are innovating and getting degrees in innovation at a very high rate. And when it gets down to entrepreneurship, the most funding goes to specifically white men. In venture, which is a bit beyond, small business. But if you're a tech founder and you're a woman, a male company is more likely to get money at something like 80% more likely. Sheesh. So women are only getting like 20% of venture capital. When it comes to small business, Black women have the most number of small businesses, but their receipts are 3 times lower than white women-owned businesses. So there is a huge disparity there that we knew that we could address if we work together with other organizations that are interested in making an impact and interested in really including the community in that. So we came together with Georgetown and the city of DC to start the initiative Beacon, the DC Women Founders Initiative, with the goal of making DC the #1 city, the most supportive city for women entrepreneurs in the district.
Wow. Okay.
And it was really important to call it the DC Women's Founders Initiative, and not specifically say, to me, call out a certain ethnicity or demographic, because women should really mean all women.
Okay.
And when we work for women, we should be working for all women, especially in a city like DC with a historically majority Black population. When we talk about women in DC, we're talking about Black women.
Wow. No, absolutely. And Beacon sounds like it's awesome. Sounds like a great initiative.
Thank you.
You do a lot on the music side of things, too. So you got a lot going on. So from policy to environmental justice to Beacon and women's empowerment who are entrepreneurs. And then you have a music summit as well.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so actually, my entry into Beacon and women's entrepreneurship work, all of that starts with music, actually. So ever since I was in high school, I've been in bands, loved music. When I first moved to DC, when I didn't really know anybody, the music community welcomed me here. So I got to be a part of the music made friends with the music collective, the Musai House. It was a free space to build community, create music, and from there made a lot of my connections in the city. And once I joined Google, I was asked to do as a 20% project. So that means asked to spend 20% of my time on something cool and different, to be the Black Small Business Liaison. Cool. And what I recognize from my time with Musai and just being in the city, visiting small businesses, is that there are so many amazing artists, amazing creatives in our city who are obviously looking, to make a living off of their work. But they did not necessarily see themselves as business owners, and therefore were not accessing the resources available for business owners. So being the Black Small Business Liaison meant that I wanted to make that connection between being an artist to getting artists to see themselves as business owners and to see themselves as deserving of these resources that we are dedicating to business owners.
Nice. And all that has led you to the Forbes Top 30 Under 30. Is that all of that comes together?
It was an amazing surprise. I mean, if I'm being real, this is kind of silly. I don't know how, if you hear about The Secret or anything. I don't know if, I believe in that. But I will say that it was my birthday wish when I turned 29 in January, last January. It's like, I really want to be on the list. And if I could get on some kind of list, that would be amazing. But especially Forbes. And lo and behold, it happened. But, I think it's like anything. I really try to let my work speak for myself. And I really am only able to do the work I am because of this community. And so having that community support, I think, was crucial to getting recognized. I know was crucial to being recognized by Forbes. And it's amazing being a part of that community, because then you can pay it forward by helping them recognize other amazing people who are doing work in their different sectors and different communities, especially for me, folks of color.
Yeah, well, Aerica Banks, you're awesome. You're incredible, and congratulations on everything that you're building and creating, and how you're using, your platform to take, you're taking that responsibility and giving back to other people. I think that's awesome. That's very commendable. Let everybody know how they can follow you and continue to follow you on your journey and on your movement, and maybe get down with Beacon and the Music Summit and all the other things you're working on.
Absolutely. So thanks again so much for having me. If you're interested about Beacon's work, we have a directory of more than 300 women-owned businesses. If you have a women-owned business, please join a directory. You can self-submit. The website is thebeacondc.com. Two other ventures for business owners, especially of color, is 1863 Ventures, and there's also the Her Impact DC initiative by the Ford Foundation, and you can look that up at herimpactdc.net and 1863ventures.com. And you can follow me at Aerica Shimizu, ERIKASHIMIZU, on Instagram or Twitter. Back in the day, I felt it was a little important to be a little incognito. Hence the handles. But yeah, and always happy to help and happy to partner. So thanks for having me. And it's been a great.
Well, keep doing great things, and we're impressed. That's our Working Woman Wednesday right there. Miss Aerica, thank you so much.
Thank you.